Hi everyone, this is Niladri. Welcome to the Project Management Professional Training Session 21. So in session 21, we are going to talk about procurement management, and this is the part two. So we already have the training completed for the procurement management in lesson 20, where we had a deep dive about the contracts and the kind of the contracts and so on. And 21 is just just an extension of it, and we are going to have a look into other stuff like the procurement life cycle, and then we are going to go into few of the questions to make sure that our knowledge is more crisp and nice here. But procurement as a subject will always be a little bit hazy to you. Most of you who have not been engaged into proper like procurement teams in a org, uh, you may not know the entire story of that cycle. So you should be well versed about the concepts of contract. That's number one thing, and number two is that uh, try to practice as many questions as possible on the procurement, because this is going to ensure that maybe not 5 out of 5, but at least 3 out of 5 in the questions are being marked correct by you in the exam. I will strictly advise not to spend too much time on a difficult procurement question, because since the knowledge may not be extremely well with you, the chances are very high that you will lose time on the question, right? Spend strictly 1 minute, 30 seconds maximum, or maximum 2 minutes on the question, and then move forward. Okay. And since in PMP we do not have a negative marks on any in a question, you can always mark the best one or take out the two which are not looking a match at all, and out of the remaining two which are close match, you pick the correct one. Okay. So with that, let's start off procurement life cycle. Prior to that, that particular slide which I bring, of course, in all the training sessions. Now, yes, we have covered all the knowledge areas apart from integration and procurement. We are going to complete in this session 21 itself, and then we will take a deep dive into integration. I know we have been talking about it, all the knowledge areas a lot for quite some time, but integration is one of the key knowledge areas which I have kept till the end, because once you understand all the other key knowledge areas, it will be pretty much easy and simple for you to understand integration management. So, procurement life cycle. Now, most of it is known by you, but a couple of the things will not be known by you, like I said, because you may have worked all the while in big organizations where there is a dedicated procurement team or a department, right? And the work of that team is mainly to work with contracts and legal terms and bidding and all those things, right? But on a high level view, you must know how the procurement cycle happens. And I will also share with you, like maybe at Amazon, from the CIS standpoint, from which point you take it over. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Let me just pick up my annotation here, and then we can get into the options. So the first one is the requirements. So requirement is something. First of all, I have to know that what I need. Okay, maybe I'm going to have let's say a data center coming up in the future, right? And I kind of have the design being vetted by the architects and all the senior technical people and the organization as a whole. And we have checked through all the budget, the solutions and everything. And we are completely, nice on that part. Like our like solution is on the table, a detailed solution is on the table, and we also know that how much time will this program need and what kind of procurement we have to do. So procurement, when we say, it is not only about the hardware, right? It's also about the services. So you may need some resources on the ground level to get your job done, and you definitely will need to have some hardware to ensure that it's meeting the program requirements. So requirement is the first step. Let's say for the data center, you would like to have n number of racks, x number of switches, y number of routers, like all the networking, hardware. And also you would like to have the passive portion of the hardware, which is, let's say, cables and so on and so forth, right? Apart from that, you will also need the services. You probably would like to have the technicians, the cable integrators, the people who are going to walk into the DCs, and they will set up the cooling and the electricity and all that stuff, the power, cooling, and all that stuff, right? So your requirement is well documented. Once you have done the requirement piece and you know exactly what you need, looking at the velocity of the program, how much you have to complete. Let's say a DC is normally not done in a very flat way. They divide the DC into multiple stages, right? Because there are multiple things to be done in a data center, and that involves a huge amount of work. So it's better to control it by doing that in phase wise. Now, second will be your request for proposal. Here is what you are going to reach out to the known vendors in the company. Okay, let's say that you have got a vendor A who is known to supply you with the networking hardware. Let's say the active hardware. A vendor B is there who is known to supply you the hardware for, let's say, the passive material. I mean, there are different kind of vendors. Or you may would have heard a new vendor which is in region in that country, and you would like to have a talk with them. So you share all the request of the proposal to the known and also to the new vendors. Okay, and you just want to reach out to them and ask for a proposal of the solution you're asking for. Sometimes we are just not looking for the hardware and the services. Sometimes also we are looking for a specific kind of a service, like project management consultant service, or maybe a IT consultant service, or maybe a solution architect kind of service, or maybe a developer kind of service. Niche kind of services can also be obtained with the help of the vendors. Not necessarily that they all will be working in the company as a blue batch or as a permanent. There may be they may be contractors or even freelancers who work with vendors, and they may be extremely highly skilled people, and you would like them to have on the table to get the job done, right? So the proposal is being shared to the vendors, and the vendors will get back to you in the sense the person who is the focal in your team. Again, let's not talk about our company right now. We will talk about Amazon and the big companies, how they work, but let's talk about in a generic way. Let's say it's a small company, and let's say you are the focal point. Okay, so on your mail you will see all the kind of proposals will be coming. There may be a lot of PowerPoint like presentations shared with you, and it's always best to ensure that you do some meetings with the vendor in person. So you call them to your office maybe, and you have a like couple of hours set with them. They take you through the entire like solution. You may ask them, hey, I would like to have a data center, or let's say I would like to have a smart campus, right? And the smart campus, the guys will come and they will share with you a complete detailed like demonstration of what do you mean by smart campus, what the vendor has done so far, and how the tech will be done, how the solution will be done, and how the vendor is going to help you with the hardware and the services, right? Some companies, they directly go with a vendor solution, complete solution by the vendor. And why they do that? Because when you are planning to do something for your organization, right, the very initial thought, let's say a product based company. Okay, the product based company, they work in this way, like like make or buy. Like, shall we build the product or shall we buy the product? So maybe a product is already available in the market, a pretty good one with a lot of very good review and feedback on that, right? Or shall we make it? Now there are two ways this can be seen. When you make a product, of course, there will be time which is going to be needed to build that product. Secondly, you also need to have the skilled workforce to build that product. Okay, and if you're planning to launch the product and generate some revenue, then probably you will be slower in the market, because if you look at your competitors who already have are in the league a little bit forward from you, then probably you have to think in a different way, right? But still, some companies, they make the decision of building their product. Maybe it's in the culture of the company, or they think whatever it is, it may take a little bit more time, but we will come with a more nicer product, a better product, right? Some companies, they think about the customer penetration, so they will be thinking, uh, you know let's make it so maybe in a phase wise, like quickly launch the product in the market, right? And there is make or buy. Buy is something where you do not want to build that product, because you do not want to invest that money or time or your existing workforce on something which is already in the market and there's a very good product on that. Okay. Let's say a IT monitoring tool, right? You might be having a very good monitoring tool in the market. So, and it's a a 5 star rating kind of a tool, which people have loved it and they are just purchasing it and using it for their own networks. Maybe you can take a thought into that. Shall I make or buy? Okay. So once you decide on buying, then you just make the contract and buy the product, right? But once you decide on making, then you have to find out what you need at your end to make the product. Okay. So, proposal is something where the vendor will be sharing with you their proposal about the solution, maybe the technical solution itself, or kind of the workforce which you need, the capacity, and all that, and they will come up with a high level price, of course. Okay, and if they have already implemented that solution somewhere in the market, they will definitely showcase that to you. That is the way the vendors will be attracting you, or rather say they will be sharing some facts and figures with you that, hey, you know what, you're talking about a DC which is a green friendly or a planet friendly kind of a data center. We already have built that, 5 of them, like globally, and they're all super successful. So that brings a lot of credibility to the vendor. So request for proposal is not just about, okay, what you want and what we can give. It's more about a talk between the vendor and the buyer, and that leads into a relationship as well. See, your company can work extremely nice if you are having a very nice relationship with your vendors and partners, especially the external ones. Because internal ones, any which ways, the it's been taken that the relation will be good. I mean, that's how the company works. The culture is built up, right? You all have gone through a similar kind of principle and all that. But when it's external, so remember that they're always coming from a different cultural background. But it's important to develop a very good relation with these people that will help your work to go faster. um, Generally what we have seen is that what we do, let's talk about a program which I did for Boeing. Okay, that was called high performance computing, HPC. High performance computing is a very niche kind of a program which is used in aviation field, where you are basically building a supercomputer lab, okay, with very very high speed, high data, and so on. Okay, that will be probably 10,000 like data points in 1 second and all that stuff. So that's a very different kind, a complex kind of a solution, and very few companies have actually done that. Okay, so you invite those vendors, you take a call with them, and the vendor will probably do the entire setup with everything configured, and your subject matter expert on that will also be a part of that call. Your architect, your SMEs and your delivery managers will be a part of that call, or you all will be in one single room, because everybody will be having a question. You do a round table and you kind of make sure the vendor understands what you need. This is what you need. This will be your couple of the use cases on the solution, and that's how they come to a common sync that, okay, this is what I'm going to prepare for you. Okay, so we also call it interviews. Some company calls it technical interview. So you call the vendor to your company, probably you book a big meeting room, you call it, you make sure all the people who are aligned to that, or who are a part of that particular in a product selection, they are a part of that room. Especially if it's a technical product, then make sure your SMEs and your architect is a part of that call, because they can bring a lot of value on the table. And then you ensure that you drive that call with the vendor and your company, and you reach a kind of a solution I mean a kind of the high level, or the low level, also the low level draft of the proposal which the vendor is going to share. Okay, selection is almost a part of it. So once the proposal is shared by the vendor, then whatever we spoke right now, you get the vendor to your to your in premise, and you have a discussion with the vendor along with your key stakeholders. That all leads to the selection of the vendor, and you do that separately. So let's say that you have got the request of proposal from 5 vendors, right? Out of the 5, when you look into their emails, or you check them out, or you check their company history, all the vendors will be sharing with you a brief history of their company. So some of the companies may be a pretty well built, will some star rating on them, and will be having a very good kind of the clients like similar to your company. Okay, and some of them will be pretty much like startups. They probably would have got their business like 1 year back or 5 years back. So looking at the proposals itself, you are going to weed out a few of them. Okay. And you will say, okay, out of the five, let's call this four vendors to our company. Okay. You would be having some factors in your mind on which factor you are going to do the primary filtering. The factors can be the experience of the vendor, number one. The factor can be, is the vendor doing a similar kind of a solution in the similar market space where your company stands? Maybe your company is in the retail market space or e-commerce. Then you have to find out, is the vendor doing a similar kind of a service to, let's say, a company in India called Flipkart? Are they doing a similar kind of a service to a retail company in India, which is also almost a very big name compared to Amazon in India, right? So these can be your filtration points. And then you select the vendor based on all the three vendors. When they come to your company for interview, then you do it like 1:1:1. Like you do the tech rounds with them. And we generally call them tech rounds because the next part will be the negotiation and the contract that generally the project manager do not do. But let's say the tech rounds you have done with three of the vendors, and you then do a kind of a, what to say, a brief or a debrief of all the tech rounds. And finally, internally, you all decide that yes, this vendor gets all the points that I wanted. I found they are very easy to talk to. Looks like they have got all the resources in the city itself or local as well. They all know the local laws, the rules and regulations, and they also have got a experience of this kind of products and programs that we are talking about. So you select the best of the best, right? You may also select two of them. And this is the time when you are not going to tell the vendor who is selected, to whom the contract is being awarded. This is the time probably, if you have got a procurement team and all, then probably somebody from your company will talk with the vendor to do a negotiation. Okay, the negotiation talks, generally the project manager is not a part of that in big companies, but in small companies, yes, the PM himself will be doing the negotiation. So you negotiate like, how much can you offer with the quality that we are supposed to get, or we are supposed to expect on the program with that kind of the quality. What is the best price which you can offer? Look at the long term. It's not the single one project we are doing. We may follow up with multiple these kind of like projects in the next 2 or 3 years. And finally, the vendor which wins in the tech round, of course, and also in the negotiation, to that vendor the contract is being awarded. Now, here comes the deal. In Amazon, probably from requirement till proposal, till vendor selection, till negotiation and contract, you are not doing anything from CIS. That already has been taken care by the procurement team. Okay, you don't have to really raise a contract for a vendor. You can work on that. You can help the procurement team with all the inputs, but most of the time you will find that the contract is already established with the vendor. The vendor already has got a contract awarded from Amazon, which has got all the clauses well defined. And you also will find the vendor will be having a rate card with them. And you kind of know that what's the pricing the vendor is going to charge if you go for this amount of product or services. Okay, so that part is done by the procurement team in the company. And that's the only reason you may not be knowing a lot of things about the procurement, because you are not a direct player in that game, right? Uh, if it's a small company or startup, you will get to know a lot of things. Okay. Now, why I said in the vendor selection, you do a tech round, because in IT, I have seen that people normally, when they want to get something done, a technical thing done by the vendor, if it's a very large scope of work, they try to outsource that work. Okay. Let's say uh, I saw the need that I have to build a data center for our company in X part of, let's say, US, right? And since the program is very large and complex, it will take at least 2 years for us to complete. I would like to give it to a vendor, basically outsource it, right? Let the vendor do it. Okay. I probably will not build it on my own. I will take help of a third party vendor. Okay. Now, in this cases, I definitely need to have a technical round, because I am doing a tech product kind of a outsourcing to a separate vendor who is going to do it. It may also happen, which you will never know, that the vendor may subcontract this to somebody else. So vendor is picking up the program from you, and it may happen the vendor will do the exactly same things from their end, and maybe with little faster pace because they know the market well than you, and they will be getting a subcontract kind of thing for their program. They will say, okay, Amazon, we will build a DC for you, which you asked for, and they will subcontract that program into multiple areas. Like they will say, okay, I will get the construction guy to get the DC built. Okay, I will get the cooling guy, the cooling company. I will get the power company. I will get all the integrators, electricians, and all the verticals they will arrange and give it to you. So from Amazon, from the parent company or from the buyer, you probably just have to supervise it. You supervise the vendor. You both agree on a schedule which is being signed off. You prepare all the milestones, and then you just do the daily stand-ups or weekly calls or status report, and you find out where are we standing at any point of time in terms of CPI and SPI. So that's about the negotiation and contract. Okay. And once the contract is being awarded, then the vendor is in the system. Okay. So till this part, if you are in CIS, probably you are not doing this. Okay. This part is done by the procurement team, who we say, and they do all the award of the contract to the vendors. Now, what you do is that you request for a quote, because again, the contract is being given to the vendor, great, but for individual programs, let's say you have got a day one project, right? You have to get the quote for that day one project. So for that, what you do, you reach out to the vendor who is already onboarded with Amazon. Onboarded means the contract is being awarded to the vendor, and then you ask for, hey, what is the code for, let's say, X amount of Cisco 9410 and Y amount of Cisco ASR, and so on and so forth. You basically share that this is what I need, 10 into X switches, 20 into Y routers, and like that, and you get the code. And then the vendor will be sharing with you a code to you. Okay, request for code, and they will share a code with you. Once the code is being shared, it will be vetted. You will definitely vet the code. How do you vet a code? You look into past codes. Number one. See, if it's a day one or a day two, we already know in our back of our mind how much money to be spent to get an MDF done. To get an MDF done for 250 people or 1000 people. We should be having that data by now. We have done so many MDFs, like so many day ones, right? And every delivery TPM in CIS will be knowing that number. The generic, not exactly the accurate number to the dot, but the ballpark kind of the number, they will know that, okay, this much amount or dollar we have to spend to get a MDF, a minimum MDF in a building with one single floor or with 10 floors, right? So um, you vet the code based on the historic data, number one. Number two is that you also vet the code based on if you find something abnormal on the code. Let's say sometimes a vendor will be adding something, a section or a row called miscellaneous. Okay, like they will be adding all the rows like switch one or switch X quantity 5. They will give you the value in dollars, right? And then it will say, okay, into 5, this is the value. But when you reach that stage, you will also find at the bottom of the sheet, they will give you some term called miscellaneous, and they will add you some $1,000 on that. So those kind of the cases you have to be careful. Why? What is this miscellaneous? Miscellaneous can be something, maybe some nuts and bolts and some accessories for which they don't have a SKU number or a part number, right? But miscellaneous can also lead to thinking that, you are probably adding a lot of not so required things into that value of the code to make it a higher number. So like this, you vet the code. Delivery TPMs who are dealing with day ones and the day twos for some time, let's say 6 months to 1 year, for them it will not take, in fact, half an hour to 45 minutes to vet one code. I'm talking about active hardware. Similarly, probably half an hour to 45 minutes to vet one passive hardware code. Okay. For audio video, yes, it may take a little bit more time because AV has got a lot of other components and they are high value. So you have to check them a bit carefully and you have to find out if the AV components are matching. Again, you have to take a help of a SME there. Do we really need this? And they will say yes, no. And then you vet the code, you cut it short, or you ask the vendor a few questions, and then you ensure that this is what the code is about. And then you generate the purchase order. Again, to generate the purchase order, what you do, you raise the purchase request. But after that, again, the procurement team or the purchase team, they take care of that. They will add you as a watcher. And then after that, They will add the proper teams or the proper focals for in the approval chain, depending on the dollar value of that purchase order. The higher the value, the higher the cap limit is. It will go to, let's say, L5 plus or L6 plus or L7 plus and like that. And finally the purchase order will be generated when all the approvals are being received, right? And then it is the job of the procurement team again to share the purchase order with the vendor. If you are a part of a small company, then you probably will be sharing the purchase order to the vendor. But in this case, the procurement team will be sharing the purchase order with the vendor, and they will keep a track of it. Even the delivery TPM has to keep a track of it, as you know, in your work front, like the PM tool and few other like places. You have to keep a track of the PO just to ensure that you know how much you're spending on this program, right? Once the PO is being generated, uh, or prior to that, two things has to be confirmed from the vendor, especially once you get the quote and all, your cost is being determined, and you also have to get the lead time. So let's say you are hiring a yellow badge contractor from a vendor. You have to know what is the lead time to get one yellow badge contractor. Fine. Is it like tomorrow itself, or is it like after 1 week, after 1 month? Similarly, for any kind of hardware, how long will it take take for me to get the shipment of this particular model of switch to my doorstep? Doorstep in the company. So vendor will be giving you some lead time, 6 weeks to 8 weeks, 8 weeks to 12 weeks, and so on and so forth, right? So once the purchase order is being generated, you track that. And this tracking is called service delivery and performance monitoring. So this is where some good tools has to be used. And again, the procurement team, they help you with this. They track all the purchase orders, they track all the shipment, and finally they keep on sharing this report with all the delivery TPMs that, okay, these are all the purchase orders that we have got in flight. They all are being generated, and this is the tracking with the vendors. Let's say vendor A, B, C, D, like CDW and so on and so forth. And this is the dates that they are promising. Okay. Based on the dates promised by the vendor, you also have to check that whether the dates are meeting or not meeting. And accordingly, you can also change the health status of your program in Workfront. If it's green, great. If it's you are seeing that there's a threat somewhere, like a shipment delay, let's say from Singapore to US, you can put the program on amber. Okay, till the time you get a proper status from vendor. Or it can be red as well if the vendor says, hey, I've got chip problems. I don't have chips. I will not be able to give you the switch till we can manufacture one. So this kind of stuff. Most of the time, if it's a networking hardware, let's say from Cisco, it is manufactured on demand, which means that this vendor will not be having everything on the table. Like you are ordering, let's say, Cisco phones, and then Cisco switches, routers, firewalls, AV solutions. Now the vendor will not be having everything stacked in some warehouse. How Cisco works is that, or how the vendor, let's say for Cisco, for example, how Cisco will work is that once you generate the purchase order, they will load it into their tool. Once the loading is done, then they can track it. So loading done means it they will be getting an alert in their factories that, okay, Amazon has ordered 200 Cisco phones, right? So let's start manufacturing them. And once the manufacturing is done, then they will start the shipping. So that entire, from manufacturing till shipping, the Cisco tool will be showing that. And that is something they will be sharing with us, maybe the focal in our company, that this is the process. Sometimes they may not share the entire manufacturing cycle, but they will say that, yeah, order has been received, shipment pending. So between the order received to till the shipment is being pending, they will be doing the manufacturing piece. Okay. And once they have started the shipment, they will let you know, and then it will take its like usual time, the shipment to arrive on your doorstep. If it's by air, great, it will take a very short time. If it's by ship, it depends, 1 week to 10 days. And then it will reach on the port. Then you have to work on the compliance standards, like from the port, you have to release it. Sometimes the port officer will be asking some questions, and then you take it out, and then finally it comes to your site, and so on. So customs, compliance, all has to be met to ensure that the product is arriving on your doorstep on the time. Now, this entire process, which I said, that has to be monitored, and a pattern has to be checked also. Are we seeing a kind of a green pattern always, like whatever promised by the vendor, we are getting it, or we are always seeing a delay in the shipment of the hardware or a delay in the arrival of the hardware? Then they have to dig in and find out whose problem is it. Can the problem be sorted if the vendor can ship it a little bit earlier? And then they have to check all this. But if they find the vendor is promising something, some lead time, but in reality they are far behind on the lead time, and they cannot give to us what they have promised, then it's a problem. And that's when probably you have to take a call, like, shall we keep this same vendor? Okay. Finally, if the product has arrived on your doorstep, then invoicing has to be done. So whatever invoicing you will be doing from the tool, that invoice has to be sent to the vendor or the seller, and the proof has to be there that, okay, we have received this product at our doorstep. Somebody has to vet that. Maybe the local IT or somebody has to vet that, have the product really reached to Amazon doorstep. And finally, depending on that, the contract which is being awarded to the vendor, maybe it's a yearly contract, you have to go for the renewal, you have to retender it or extend it, or probably you do not like the vendor and you exit the contract. But all these things will again be done by the procurement team, the vendor management team. So here you are not going to do any of the stuff. Your job will be strictly like limited to request for quote, purchase order generation, service delivery. Some inputs will be given, but you will not be managing the entire monitoring index system for that. Uh, Invoicing also to some extent, but generally it's been done by the procurement team. Okay, so you don't have to do any much of the steps here. But if you're a part of a smaller company, then definitely yes, you have to do most of the stuff on your own. Probably from end to end, you have to do it. Um, and that is why we say that procurement is hard, because you have not had the first hand kind of experience with contracts and everything, and that's why few questions may seem a little tricky to you. All right, that's a kind of an overview on the procurement life cycle. Our next section will be completely based on some questions. I will take you through some 4 or 5 questions just to ensure that we are having the confidence of the basics here and we understand the stuff well. So question one. Okay, again, these are not the questions from the exam. No one has the question of the actual PMP exam. These are mostly to make sure that we are knowing the stuff. Okay, and these are not very difficult questions as well. Like the fundamental questions. In exam, you do not expect these kind of questions where it's a one single statement and easy 4 options, right? In exam, you expect a question like a use case kind of thing, which we'll discuss when we do the final test. So, what is the primary objective of negotiation? See, negotiation is one of the key traits of a leader. And as a project manager is considered a leader, a project manager is considered to be a great negotiator. Okay, like I said, maybe in Amazon, your procurement team is taking care of all the negotiation and contract awards and all that. But PMP exam thinks that being a PMP PM, you should be able to run the entire procurement cycle. So what is the primary objective of negotiation? Options are: it defines the exact responsibility of each party, clarify the contract scope, get the best deal possible, find a win-win proposition for both parties. Now, one thing which I want to call out here is that, whenever in PMP exam also you go for the real exam, you will actually find two, I mean, like out of the four, two of the multiple choice options will be just kind of can be striked off. You know that these cannot be the one, and two will be pretty close to each other, and that's where the trick happens, how much you know the subject. So here, if you look into that, define the exact responsibility of each party or clarify the contract scope is definitely the objective, is not the objective of the negotiation. So A and B can be striked off, but C and D are pretty close, right? Negotiation in layman's term is what? Get the best deal possible, right? That's why we negotiate. We negotiate to a shopkeeper and we always want to get the best deal. So best deal means negotiate. But in project management terms, proposition or negotiation is basically when it's not a lose win or a win lose kind of a situation. Both the buyer and the seller are actually win win. And that is how the business will flourish. If the seller is not winning or the buyer is not winning, then it is not a negotiation. Then it's kind of a forced business, which will not result into a nice outcome. So negotiation is find a win-win proposition for both parties. Okay, great. Question two. Yeah, these kind of questions you can still expect a little bit lengthy questions, a little bit more than that with some use cases, right? You are the project manager of a construction project. You are inviting request for proposal from eligible vendors. While going over the list of vendors, you realize that one of the names in the list is a good friend of yours. You know he is excellent at what he does and will be the perfect match for your project. What should you do next? This is actually not exactly a procurement question. This is a hygiene factor question. Maybe in Amazon, when you give the compliance question test and all that, which are mandatory trainings, you would have faced this kind of question or seen this kind of questions. It's very simple, right? Um, you have to be super careful when you are dealing with a known friend in a dollar value, right? So first point is that answer is disassociate from the bidding process and inform your sponsor. Okay. Second is award him the contract since you know he's a perfect match for your project. Definitely, this is not the right answer, right? So strike it off. C is give him some inputs off the record on how your organization award contract. Again, strike it off. We are not going to give any input to anybody off the record. Do not contact your friend and continue with the procurement process. That also is, I will say, yeah, that's not official way, right? Why will you not contact your friend? So the best answer is that disassociate him from the bidding process and inform your sponsor. Okay, because whenever you see somebody known to you, howsoever skilled that person is, it is always good to disassociate from the bidding. So you can step away from the bidding process and you can inform your sponsor that, hey, for this reason, I'm stepping out. Be honest with the sponsor, and you can nominate anybody else to be the focal of the bidding. Because what happens is that when you see a known person, especially a friend, it's called a subconscious bias. Okay, even without, um, even maybe the friend will be highly, capable. So two things can happen. One is that the friend is really capable, okay, and he has beaten all the three, bids, and he is the best guy. But still, if somebody in the office knows that you two were good friends, there will be a word of mouth that, hey, he got the contract. You know why? Because these two are close friends. That's a very, very incorrect way of talking about your friend, right? Or yourself, because that leads to unhygienic factors. But the other part is that, let's say your friend is having a very close tie. Your friend is like, he got the points like uh, 8.5 out of 10, and maybe one of the other bidder also got 8.5 out of 10. It's a very close tie. Maybe you have to do a few steps more to get the point correct. But due to your subconscious bias towards your friend, you may say, in the close tie, your friend wins. Why? Because I know him. So I know him is not a very good way in contracts or in any dollar value kind of award. Okay, so here you should be going with strict official norms. And it's this question is not exactly a procurement question, quote unquote. It's more about a hygiene question. But it's kind of those kind of the questions which you see in the exam. Okay. Question three, a very typical procurement question. So you are dealing with a cost plus incentive fee CPIF contract. The estimated cost of the contract is 150K with a predetermined fee of 30K. Now, the share ratio of buyer to seller is 70 to 30, like 70% to 30%. Once the project is complete, the actual cost of the project comes out to be 120. So initially our estimated cost was 150, right? And once the project is complete, the actual cost of the project comes out to be 120. Okay, how much savings did the seller make? Okay, now this is very easy to find out because 150 was the kind of the estimated cost of the contract, and the seller, he has ended the project with 120K. So basically 150 minus 120 is 30 in a thousand savings the seller has made, right? So if you look into the answers like quickly, you will find 30 is an option only with C. So probably in this case you don't have to even find out the next answer. Now in exam, especially during the last 20-25 question where you will really struggle for time, right? The clock will be ticking and you will be like less than maybe 15 seconds for each question. These kind of the question, you if you know the first option and if you don't see any of the other answers has got the correct answer, like in this case A, B and D are not having the 30, you can blindly choose C because you know that that's the only option that will go correct. You don't have to check whether that 9K or $9,000 is a correct answer or not, because you know this C is the right answer, right? But let's say, just to make your life more difficult, PMP says all the other options are having this 30,000. So now you have to check the second number as well. So second question is that also how much did he make as incentive? Very simple. So basically the ratio of buyer to seller is 70 to 30. So 30% of 30,000. 30% of 30,000 is 9,000. So that's how the answer comes to C, 9,000. Okay. So remember this tip. If there are two parts to a question, you solve the first part. And if you know that first part answer is 100% correct and only one option is having that first part, you are having a lack of time to double check the second part, you can blindly check on the first part if none of the other options are having the first part as the correct answer. Okay, question 4. You have awarded the contract to a seller. However, it was only later that you realize that you have missed a clause for any project delay. It happens frequently. Okay, after you awarded the contract, you are like, hey, I missed that one thing, right? You would now want to modify the contract. What is the right way to proceed? I know we have not came into that monitoring and execution piece, change control and all that stuff. But it's a nice question. So let's go to the answers. First is contract is legally binding, so cannot be modified once awarded. Actually, not true. Okay, know this. It's not true. It can be modified. Okay, with the signature of the sponsor and both the parties. Uh, Number 2 is make use of the contract change control system. This is actually the correct answer. So change control is nothing but I know that I have not shared that concept yet. Change control board is something which is there, or the change control system is there, where you will be having all the influential key stakeholders there, along with the sponsor and the project manager. And if there is any contractual change to be done, it has to pass to the CCB or the change control board, and they will say, yeah, this looks like a change to be done. It's not being mentioned. They will approve it. You can add that additional statement, get the contract regenerated with the additional signatures which you need. C is inform the seller about this change through a formal written communication. Will not hold because contract is a legal document and you cannot do any change on that by just a formal written communication, right? Number D is casually bring up the change with the seller after a meeting and observe his reaction. Never. You cannot talk about a contract change casually to a seller, right? So you have to go with this. You may be tricked into this question like the C, which talks about inform the seller about the change through a formal written communication. I will say it will never happen like that because a contract is a legal document and you cannot change that with just with the help of an email or some kind of a written in a doc and you sign that off. Okay, you have to go through the change or the contract change control system. So answer is B. The final question is question 5. You are the project manager of a website development project. There is a requirement of payment API integration for your website. This is a one-time activity and you figure out that it will be easier to contract this work out rather than hire a couple of engineers for in-house development. Okay. So you decide to outsource this work to a third-party vendor. What tool did you use here? Very easy question. I discussed this in the beginning as well. See, the key word here is that this is a one-time activity and you figure out it will be easier to contract this work out rather than hire, which means contract it out, which means buy it rather than hire a couple of engineers for in-house development rather than to make it. So whenever you get into a program from the portfolio like level, from the high level, your first talk, the senior guys, the first talk is that make or buy. Shall our company make this product or shall we buy it? Like, where is the gain? Do we want to hire a couple of like coders to get this product being developed? Do we see a gain in that, or we see more gain if we buy? Okay. So here, definitely, what tool did you use? It's not a bidder conference. It is not time and materials contract. It is not a source selection criteria. It is a make or buy. Uh, you may be tricked if you don't know the concept by looking into the option D called source selection criteria. Source selection criteria is nothing but how the project will be selected. That's a different concept altogether. Okay. But here, what we are talking about is make or buy. So that's kind of a little bit of the questions just to make sure that we go through them, we understand the concepts, we are having the confidence level, because procurement is one of the topics in the exam where you need to have some confidence in you, because this is not a very well versed or well traveled path by many of the project managers. All right, with that, we came to the end of the lesson 21. I wish you all you liked it and enjoyed it. Wish you all a great day and a great time. Thank you for watching. Cheers.